Imagine getting a second chance at sight. A brand new cornea that lets you see the world again. For one man, this medical miracle turned into a waking nightmare. After a successful transplant, everything seemed perfect. The blurriness faded, colors sharpened, and he could finally see faces clearly. But then, he started seeing more. Things that weren't there before. At first, it was just a flicker in his peripheral vision. A shadow that vanished when he turned his head. But soon, he couldn't ignore them. Perched on the shoulders of strangers, he saw them, ethereal, bird-like creatures, with hollow eyes and long, sharp beaks. He dubbed them Scavengers. He noticed a horrifying pattern. Every person he saw with a scavenger on their shoulder met a tragic end within days. A man on the subway, a woman crossing the street, a coworker in the office, all of them gone. He was seeing death before it happened. This wasn't a gift, it was a curse. He tried to tell his doctor, his friends, his family. They all dismissed it as post-surgery hallucinations, a side effect of the trauma and medication. He was alone with this terrible knowledge, a helpless spectator to the world's invisible reapers. The isolation was crushing. He couldn't look at people without searching for the dreaded silhouette. His heart pounding every time he saw one. Desperate for answers, he started digging into the history of his anonymous donor. The hospital records were sealed tight, but he was relentless. After weeks of searching, he uncovered a name, and then a story. The donor was a young artist, a recluse who had taken their own life. Piecing together old blog posts and scattered online journals, he found the truth. The donor could see them too. They weren't just a random person. They were a scavenger themselves, a human who had been burdened with this sight. They wrote about the loneliness, the horror, the feeling of being a ghost among the living. The final entry was a chilling farewell, a desperate hope that by passing on their eye, they could finally find peace and give someone else the gift. But passing on the eye didn't just pass on the sight, it passed on the burden. The moment he understood what he was, the scavengers noticed him. Their heads, which had always ignored him, now swiveled in his direction. Their hollow eyes locked onto his. They knew he could see them. And these creatures, who thrived in the unseen corners of reality, did not want a witness. They wanted their anonymity back. The game had changed. He wasn't just an observer anymore. He was a target. The creatures started to manifest in his reality, moving from the shoulders of others into his own life. It began subtly, a tapping at his window in the dead of night, sounding exactly like a beak against glass. Shadows that flitted across his apartment, too quick to be anything real. But it escalated. He'd wake up to find his food pecked apart, his books shredded, his walls covered in long, thin scratches. They were everywhere, their ghostly forms becoming more solid, more threatening. They weren't just trying to scare him, they were trying to blind him, to erase him from the world just as they erased their victims. They wanted to systematically dismantle his life, piece by piece, until he had nothing left. His apartment became a prison. The creatures were always there, perched on his furniture, their silent judgment the constant weight. They would appear in reflections, their distorted bird-like faces staring back at him from mirrors and darkened screens. He stopped sleeping, terrified of what they might do while he was vulnerable. His work suffered, his relationships crumbled. He was a man haunted, not by ghosts, but by the sentinels of death themselves. He could feel their invisible beaks pecking away not at his body, but at his sanity, his job, his home, everything that made him human. The Scavenger's goal became terrifyingly clear. They weren't going to kill him directly. That wasn't their way. They were breaking him down, isolating him, pushing him to the same edge his donor had faced. They wanted him to become so desperate, so broken, that he would see only one way out. To find a new host, to pass the curse on. The horror wasn't just seeing death. It was knowing that his only escape was to condemn someone else to the same fate. He was now part of a horrifying, supernatural lineage, a chain of unwilling seers, each one a temporary vessel for the Scavenger's eye. He started looking at people differently, not just for the creatures on their shoulders, but as potential successors. A stranger on the bus, a neighbor down the hall who would be next. The thought was sickening, but the alternative was a slow, agonizing descent into madness, picked apart by creatures that no one else could see. He was caught in a horrifying cycle. To save himself, he would have to become the monster, the one who chooses the next victim, the one who willingly passes on the sight. The eye that gave him vision was now his damnation, and the only way to close it for good was to force it open for someone else. The final stage of their torment began. They started to affect his perception of reality itself. A friendly face would momentarily distort into a beaked mask. The chirping of birds outside his window would sound like mocking laughter. They were blurring the lines between what was real and what was their creation, making him doubt his own mind.